Good morning, everybody. It is Super Bowl Sunday today, but just because the Super Bowl's on doesn't mean that we just stop talking about Seahawks stuff. We may not be playing today, but still got to process information, still got to go through the options in this upcoming free agency period. And we're going to continue on today taking a look at linebackers, inside linebackers. So, whether you're on a 4-3 or a 3-4, you're going to need an inside linebacker. And honestly, sometimes the skill set between a 3-4 inside linebacker and a 4-3 will linebacker is somewhat similar. So, regardless of what defense we're going to run in 2023, we're going to need to think about this position. Now, granted, we will probably be able to narrow things down a little bit better once we know what defense we're running. There are going to be some guys we might eliminate from the pool, and there are going to be some guys we might pull in depending on what defense we're running. So we do need more information, but with the information we have, I think we can at least take a look at some candidates for picking up. So we've got the list of free agent inside linebackers here, and this first video is really just going to be the big guns. The guys who you are going to have to spend a lot of money on, the guys who are going to cost near top of the market for their position, and you would bring them in expecting them to play at a Pro Bowl level, basically. These would be the cream of the crop guys, the best linebackers in this free agency class. So you look at the team right now, you look at their current situation. Jordan Brooks is under contract for one more year, but he did sustain a major injury at the end of the year. We don't yet know what his availability will be when the season starts. In fact, technically, he got injured in 2023, so yeah, for him to make it back week one would be difficult. Certainly possible, but difficult. And then you have Cody Barton, who's a free agent. You have Tanner Muse, who I think will be brought back, but is a free agent. I believe Ben Burkervin's a free agent. John Radigan's a free agent, even though I suspect he'll be brought back pretty easily. It's a position where, one way or the other, we need help, especially when Jordan Brooks did not have a very good season last year. I was not impressed with the way he played at all. And if you do keep him around and you do play him in 2023, you might be looking to move on from him after the season's over because that'll be the last year of his rookie deal if you don't do the fifth-year option. And I seriously doubt we do the fifth-year option when he just tore his ACL. So, with all that being put in mind, we definitely need to pay some attention to this position going forward. I don't know if free agency is the best way to do it, but it is a way to do it. So let's talk about the big guns. First guy up. First guy I want to talk about here, Lavonte David, longtime Tampa Bay Buccaneer, second round pick a long time ago. Getting up there in age, he just turned 33, so you are, to a certain extent, going to have to pay for past performance. But at the same time, it's not like his performance lately has been bad. He played every game in 2022, put up good numbers. He's an effective blitzer. This is a guy who came into the league the same year as Bobby Wagner and has always been a little below Bobby Wagner in terms of his effectiveness as a player, but he hasn't been that far below Bobby Wagner. He's always been kind of like the poor man's doppelganger of Bobby Wagner, I guess. He's spent some time, I believe, in both 3-4 defenses and 4-3 defenses and played fairly well in both. His best years are behind him, although I would point out that just a couple years ago, he made All-Pro second team for a team that ended up winning the Super Bowl in no small part to the fact that they had a really good defense. So I sense that this guy has something left in the tank. And while we're here, let's also point out the PFF, who have never been big Lavonte David fans. In fact, you look through Lavonte David's history, you can find some pretty lackluster grades. They loved his 2022. They gave him one of the best grades they've ever given him, an 84. Great in pass coverage, amazing in pass coverage even, if I may say so. Run defense score was really good, pass rush score was decent. And that's kind of interesting because as you go back and you can see, they've given him good grades recently as well. But this year, in 2022, for Lavonte David, according to PFF, might have been his best ever. So even though you can go back through his history and find years where he wasn't as good when he was in his physical prime, I think you look at this and you go, well, this is a guy who still has something good left to give in this league. So Lavonte David what would it take to bring him in? You'd probably have to pay a pretty decent price. And Spotrac, because of his age, believes that he's only going to get a 1-year deal. But that 1-year deal is going to run you close to $10 million, 9.7. And to me, that's reasonable. That's fair. If you look at what he was making on his previous contract, then I think that 1 year 10 million or a slightly less than 10 million would be the right idea. So the thing is, when you do something like this, you don't have any second or third years to backload the contract, which is bad. If you were giving somebody who was like Lavonte David but younger a 3-year deal for 30 million, that first year cap hit might only be like 4 million. So admittedly, this is not great. You'd probably have to use void years to work around it. But it seems to me that you would get your money's worth if you brought in Lavonte David on a 1-year deal. So that's number one. Number two, we have Tremaine Edmonds. This is also going to be one of the chief linebackers in free agency this year. This guy, former first-round pick, he's been one of the best players on an elite defense the last several years. This is a guy who's probably going to get paid big time. He's probably going to be getting similar to what Bobby Wagner got when he signed with the Rams. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there right now. He's still that level of player. The last couple years, admittedly, he hasn't been playing quite up to that level. Mostly, I think, because he's been missing some games. But he was a 2-time Pro Bowler in 2019 and 2020. He's still young, by the way. He's only going to be 25 this year, so age is not really a factor with him. And his numbers are not overwhelmingly good, but most of that is because he's spent most of his time in Buffalo on a pretty good team. And when you're on a better team, you don't put up ridiculous numbers because you've got other competent teammates. So Tremaine Edmonds, there's a lot of skill here. There's a lot of talent here. I believe that he would fit at the very least into one of the defenses the Seahawks could run this year. If they do decide to run the 4-3, then I think he definitely slots right in as a middle linebacker. Can he play in a 3-4 defense at inside linebacker? I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but I suspect the answer to that would probably be yes. He's a somewhat bigger guy, which tells me that he's more able to take on blockers, which is a key skill set for somebody in a 3-4. And PFF, they really liked his 2022 season overall. They gave him a sterling mark in coverage, which is notable because a lot of linebackers are not very good in coverage. Good pass rush grade. Run defense grade, not so good, but 79 overall works, especially when you look at some of his previous years. Even the years he made the Pro Bowl were not nearly as good as the year he just had, according to PFF, which that could be something with PFF. Like I say, it could be. PFF could just be looking at things kind of the wrong way here. But the fact that they gave him his best grade ever in 2022 tells me that, yeah, this guy's still got plenty left. He's going to be 25 this year. He's got a great combo of size and speed. And if you can get this guy, I think he does transform your defense a little bit. Now, Spotrac is kind of on the same page as me here. It's going to cost a lot of money. They estimate 4 years, $44 million, so $11 million average annual value, and I think that's about right. That's a little more than what Bobby got when he signed with the Rams, and given the fact that Edmonds is younger and may have his best years in front of him, that makes sense to me. Now, the 4-year deal means you can at least spread the money around a little bit. You can backload the contract, which is probably preferable to just a 1-year deal where all the money just has to be there unless you want to do void years. But even that first year cap hit is still probably going to be in the vein of like $5 million, which is significant, and then it's going to balloon up like crazy as you go along. But that is pricey option number 2. Let's go to number 3 here, Jermaine Pratt of the Cincinnati Bengals. This is another guy who kind of, in some manner of speaking, is in a similar boat to Tremaine Edmonds. His stats are not crazy over the top. They're not. But a big reason why is because he's actually been spending most of his career on a good team. You can actually see he's never had a season with more than 100 tackles. His career high, most recent season, 2022, 99. So this is not a guy who tackle harvests. And a lot of linebackers do that, and they become very overrated in public perception because of that. But he's been a pretty consistent player. He's missed a couple games over the last 2 years. But again, I'm going to continue to stress this point. In the modern NFL, a lot of these guys who play physical positions are going to be hard-pressed to play in every game. It's just not realistic. 17 games, 1 bye week. You're going to miss games. And like I said, he's been on a team that has been really good. He's been on a defense that has been good for a good chunk of his tenure there. So it kind of makes sense that his numbers wouldn't be anything crazy over the top. He's going to be 27 this year, so he's still in his prime. PFF gave him really nice grade for his 2022 season, most notably in coverage, which makes sense. If you actually look at his numbers, you can see that he had 10 pass deflections in coverage this year after having 4 combined his first 3 years in the league. So Jermaine Pratt, coming off a season where he had an 80 grade, and to give you an idea of how big an improvement that is in PFF size, look at what he did in 2021. 47. So they didn't like him until this year, really. I don't know if he was that big of a presence on anybody's radar until this year. So seems like he's entering his best years. I mean, that just kind of makes sense anyway because of his age. But it seems to me that he's about to start playing his best football. So Jermaine Pratt, another guy who's going to cost money. Little bit less than Tremaine Edmonds, which makes sense to me. But we're talking about 4 years, 42.5 million. So that's just a tiny bit less than Tremaine Edmonds for the same number of years. You're getting a player who's a little bit older and probably not quite as good, or at least not as prolific yet. So that makes sense to me. But you're getting a player who is in the same vein as Tremaine Edmonds for a roughly similar price. Now, these 3 guys, Lavonte David, Tremaine Edmonds, Jermaine Pratt, they're going to cost an amount of money that I don't think is feasible for the Seahawks, and I don't think that level of investment is needed at the position. But I wanted to talk about this because we need help at that position very badly. This is not a good draft for inside linebackers, and if you're going to be running a 3-4, you really need 2 really good inside linebackers because you're going to have 2 on the field at most, or a good chunk of the time. So, had to explore it. Let me know what you think of these guys. These are the 3 guys who I think are going to command a lot of money this offseason. So, see you guys later. Go Hawks. More inside linebackers later.